Welcome to the Westbrook City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. We have one item on our agenda this evening, and it is titled Private Ways. And Mr. Bryant, did you want to start off?
I guess. Basically, we've had a request that we've got referred to the committee from Kurt and Tammy Brown, who own property on Timberland Drive, which is a private way, a private road. Over the years, a number of lots have been split off. I'm not sure what it is at this point, but they live there along with 3 or 4 other homes. And basically, they are looking for some sort of exemption or relief from the private, the standard adopted for private ways or private streets in the city of Westbrook. And basically, they've come to the council to express their concern and their desire to have some sort of adjustment so that they wouldn't be subject to the private street requirements that are currently in place.
Okay.
And they're here this evening to present to you. Certainly, city planner, director of planning code enforcement is here. You have a letter, a memo from her outlining the issue. And Natalie Burns is also here, city solicitor.
Okay. Does the committee want to hear from the city planner before we make comments or ask questions or hear from the Browns? Or are we comfortable with just making comments now? Yeah. Jenny, can you just kind of fill us in on what this is about?
So we had gone through a private way ordinance recently, and within the private way ordinance, we had incorporated standards. And those were a provision that anybody who lacked frontage on a public way needed to build a private way in accordance with the standards. At the end of the document, we have a statement that reflects an ability for existing private ways that have already been built. That if they currently are above the number allowance, which right now we only allow for 3 lots on a private way, that they still can continue to provide new lots on that private way. However, they must bring the road up to the current private way standards. And the standards have been in existence for some time as they relate to road width, depths of gravel, and paving. So we had gone through this process, and it was supported by the planning board and ultimately adopted by the city council. During the course of that time, there was a request for an exception for existing private ways to be afforded the ability to just develop lots without any increase of the road's structure or bringing it up to standards. Staff has provided you with a memo that we do not necessarily find that to be in the city's best interest to allow for exceptions as it pertains to the road standards. We think from an if we're trying to bring all our roads up to standards and still allow development to occur on these roads, that they should be brought into compliance. If a developer has a desire to have a certain subdivision off of their road, then there is the provision to allow them to go through subdivision and to have those lot lines memorialized. If they do not wish to go through that process to memorialize their lots, then the offset is that they wait the 5 years before they can make their next lot splits, and that's an exemption underneath subdivision. However, the risk is that standards do change over the course of time, and then once you come up to your next lot split, you have to then comply with the standards at that time. So staff has provided you with the recommendation that we think we should stay with the standards that we have previously provided.
Okay. Natalie, do you have anything to add to that at all?
I don't, but I'll
Okay.
be happy to answer any questions that
Okay.
the committee may have.
Did you want to get up and speak?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Kurt and Tammy, sure. You could just state your name and your address
Sure.
for the record.
First of all, I'd like to thank the City Council for referring this to the Committee of the Whole. My name is Kurt Brown. My wife and I live at 50 Timberland Drive here in Westbrook, and have also had a photography business here over the past 20 years. I'm going to set this up in just a second so Tammy can give a brief presentation, and then we can take any questions after that or any concerns that you may have.
Okay,
Okay?
great.
I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well. I don't know, is this on camera, so we have to worry about people at home seeing this as well? So is this a good vantage point, or is there another camera that sees it from here? So you
The
guys
camera
see
should be
it?
able to see it from there.
Can you guys see it all right from there?
Yep.
You don't have to necessarily read the text. There's going to be some
You-
illustrations involved that you might want to see.
gonna be on
We can
camera,
pass
but-
them around and see them later if you like.
Okay.
You got a question?
Yeah, if you could, he should speak to the.
Yeah, speak in the mic if you could.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to sit down now.
Okay, so staff had comments that you just heard, so this is our taxpayer comments. Timberland Drive was constructed in 2004. There was a lot split done in 2004 and 2005, and the original homestead of 1998 was split out in 2013. That's a house that we had ourselves personally for 6 years before we did the private way. So, the last lot split was in 2016. This is a diagram, just hand, it's not to scale, but this is the Brown's homestead up here at the end of the road. This is the Shaws, and this is the Knights across from the two lots that are proposed. And you all know Suzanne Knight, she works for the city. The right-of-way is 50 feet wide. There's association, bylaws, declarations, and it was incorporated, and everything was created in 2004. So, Jenny had mentioned something about subdivision, quoting subdivision law, but within the definition of subdivision, there's also the 5-year rule. Both have existed for years. Using one does not mean that you are trying to avoid the other, as was alluded to. And that is a state of Maine law. The 5-year rule fit our vision better at the time when we did the private drive. It was low impact and done over time. We did not, we just didn't desire to do a 25-lot subdivision. So we live here. That's the bottom line. We live on the drive as well. We do tree farming. We have equipment vehicles on the drive. And it's a country feel. And that's sort of our vision, or memorialized, as Jenny said, for our land. Subdivisions have at times had unintended consequences, traffic congestion, burden on municipal services as well as schools, and some have created drainage issues such as fieldstone and unsafe road conditions such as fieldstone and Cobb Farm. Large-scale developers tend to purchase other people's land, they excavate, they build, and they leave. They receive reduced frontage zoning as well. So, Timberland Drive is built and maintained to approved city specifications, which provide for a safe road for residents as well as emergency vehicles. And until this year, we haven't, we've provided discounted and free services, maintenance for the drive for 14 years, as well as been officers until this year. There's no cost to the city for maintenance, plowing, sandings. Members pay all the cost. Membership dues are in addition to property taxes paid equally by every member. Association meetings are held annually. And there have been no member complaints in over 12 years, all but the year that a house was built in 2016. So, the city provided us with a list of 6 or 7 gravel drives, Eric Dudley to be specific, in the city that would be affected by the new private way amendment. After a great deal of research, Timberland Drive was the only drive affected. All others are either pre-approved subdivisions, built out or used as commercial access, or the frontage is owned by Portland Water District, SAPI, or the city. So what we'd like to know is why Timberland Drive is being singled out. That's really important to us. So here's Adams Way. These are pictures we got off from Google Map. We didn't go around and stalk the private drives. Hillside, Gowan Road, Peterson Road, and Austin Street Extension. And here's Timberland Drive, which shows the tree buffer, Methodist Road, paved apron, recycled asphalt pavement service, which we're not nuts about, it's kind of dusty. Okay. and more pictures of Timberland Drive, just to give you an idea of the condition of it and how it is. Planning used Biddeford and South Portland for the basis of the amendment. Wyndham, 700 feet away from us, allows up to 10 houses with the drive gravelled. Gorham allows 7. Wyndham has had a recent issue with broken pavement on a private drive. The members are refusing to pay for the repairs. So, why after 15 years does the drive need to be changed? Should we decide to sell any or all of the 2 remaining lots on Timberland Drive? I was gonna say 3 planners before this saw no need for change, but Jerry would know better. I think it's actually 2.
Yeah,
Matt-
it was Brooks Moore and then
Matt,
I mean, Jenny's
Matt,
third.
Matt Eddy.
Brooks Moore and then Moore.
All right. So, if a lot is conveyed to a family member, or donated, or even sold, there wouldn't be enough dollars required for the upgrades. We had been talking with Habitat for Humanity, thinking about donating a lot to them. We've been working with them fairly closely. So this would certainly make that not a reality at all. And yes, they would be willing to, there's also deed covenants, they'd be willing to go along with all of those as well. So, discussed all of this in November at a meeting, then now the new legislation came forward and we discussed everything at the city level with Jerry. And, so to recap, Timberland Drive is the only drive this affects. Why is this tied to a building permit? That would be a question for Jenny, the improvements. Once the last 2 lots are sold, conveyed, donated, all new private ways will meet the standards and they will know upfront what they are. We gain more members too, which is really a plus as far as dues go. Ordinances should be fair and not used as a tool to control someone's land or do something that will cause future expense to homeowners. It's hard for me to see this. At the very least, if when a new private way is created, a capital fund for paving repair could be started, but after the fact, that's going to be unlikely. So, our proposal would be to require us to do something, obviously. A re-graveling, a slight width increase. Some areas aren't what the new amendment is. Some are a little shy. And recrowning if needed. If a lot or both lots are conveyed, we would also propose an inspection schedule by the city engineer for all gravel private ways, and also keeping a record. Paving is costly and the repairs are costly. And Kurt, do you want to add anything?
Yeah,
I think that's it. I think Kurt wants to.
Okay, that's basically it, because we didn't want to take up too much of your time, but just want to reiterate just a couple of points here. The city planner alluded to the fact of avoidance when you're going to subdivision and so forth. The 5-year-old avoidance, it is a matter of doing it in a different manner. It is legal, it is done everywhere in the state of Maine. The carving as we go has allowed us a lot of flexibility, not being locked into a subdivision structure of X amount of square feet, certain utilities, certain granite curbing and things of this nature. It's allowed us flexibility. In fact, this flexibility was shown when we sold our house, 20 Timberland Drive, in 2013. The person purchasing the home desired more land when they purchased our house. It had a set amount with it. It was taken out. We're in a tree growth situation. It was taken out of tree growth. We paid the penalty originally, and they wanted more land. We gave them more land at absolutely no charge. So we had that flexibility at that time. This was not created in a willy-nilly manner. All professionals were used, from legal, we use the same attorney today, through the whole construction process, including Shaw Brothers, who was one of the biggest in the area. The gravel private way is maintained at the 2004 city standards that were established and inspected by the city engineer, who is still presently employed by the city. It provides safe passage for residential vehicles, traffic, as well as safe width, that's a key feature, safe width and design for the fire department, police department, and other emergency vehicles. And all those services have unfortunately been down our road at one point or another. One thing that I would like to bring up, because this is basically about grandfathering our road to stay at a gravel standard for a maximum of 2 lots to be added to the lots that are already there. It's already built to maximum width, it's not gonna be extended at all. There'd be a maximum of 2 more lots, if at all, one potentially sold, the other potentially donated. Like Tammy said, we've been talking with Habitat for Humanity, and we've built a relationship with them as far as donations for that. But we would like to see, if this does move forward, we'd like to see written in the amendment to this, something of an inspection schedule. What you have to realize is that by not grandfathering it and not letting any more lots be sold, it remains gravel, it can actually become in disrepair. I would highly suggest, if this moves forward, to have something written into it, to have an inspection like Tammy spoke about. Every X amount of years, the inspection could be done by the city engineer or his designee, and that would come out when a lot was sold, or on every 2, 3, 4, 5-year basis, to make sure it maintains city standards established in 2004 for gravel private ways. That's my verbal diarrhea, sorry. Go ahead. Any questions for anybody, or?
Committee have questions? Councilor Foley?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple. Can you go back to the first picture you have of the subdivision? Or of the road?
Yeah.
It's hard to see the lot line, so the two.
This one here?
That one right there. the
Yeah,
drawing.
that one right there, yeah. So the two lots,
We sort of threw,
malfunction here.
we
That's
sort of
okay.
threw this together, so it's not very
okay.
so the
professional
two
looking.
lots where it says proposed lot, is there another lot in front? Right there,
Two
yeah.
houses already built.
Okay, and are those on Methodist Road?
Methodist
No.
Road is here.
Okay.
We did this section that would be affected by, these would be the only 2 potential lots that are available for legal frontage in that district.
Okay.
For houses, and just to be clear, not for subdivision, so I don't know why that's come into the conversation. We're not looking
It
to
would be,
do
those are the other 2 divisions that could be made.
divisions
Okay.
for single-family homes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so have you gotten like cost estimates to bring the road to the standard?
We did
The
get,
private road
we did get
standard?
estimates for the pavement.
Do you have those figures?
have any
We don't, we
But do you
don't,
like verbally, and a rough estimate of?
I don't know, probably, it depends. We didn't really we got more of the pavement than we did anything.
For we spoke about pavement with Shaw Brothers, and they came out and spoke with us. And it would be, there'd be certain added gravel to the sides to get the shoulders correct. And to do that would be probably in the neighborhood of $70,000.
To bring it up to the standards necessary?
To
Of
bring- no,
today,
to bring it up to the
yes.
standards of pavement,
Right.
If we're
Right.
grandfathered, it can remain gravel. But we're saying make sure it's maintained at the gravel standard.
But I'm asking, that's what the cost is to bring it to the standards as required in the city ordinance?
Right,
be
to
able
sell
to
1 or 2
continue.
more lots, you'd have to, not necessarily us, but whoever is, we understand by the planner that it's initialized by the building permit process. So whoever applies for the building purpose would be, is that correct, would be responsible for bringing it up to those standards.
Okay,
But
okay, we can,
that's a great question, though, because if you think about it, it sort of put us in a precarious position, because if we do nothing, then nothing gets done. If we do one thing, then it gets paved, and we have then burdened our members forever and ever and ever, even if people move, and they move. The houses have turned over already here, with the repair costs of that pavement. So,
One thing we did not speak about, and we might want to bring up at this point.
if you want, probably speaking from the
Yeah.
microphone,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
just
I'm
so,
sorry.
that's okay.
One thing that we haven't brought up at this point, and you brought up a good point about the cost for paving and so forth. And beyond the cost of paving, we thought of it because we said we have an association, which, by the way, we were the only one to have an association in place. And in 2004, as you know, we did not have to put an association in place. We put an association in place to keep roads to a proper standard, to have the financial part of it divvied up equally amongst everybody, so everybody paid equal amounts to keep it at the proper standard. But regarding your question on the expense, the other expenses involved in it were 3 things. One was crack filling, which is expensive. The second is coal patch, which I think probably this gentleman could attest to is a lot more expensive almost than bituminous pavement in a hot state, as well as repaving every X amount of years. that burden has to be realized by only that small percentage of the people that live on that road. Now, I know it's expensive for the city. The city doesn't repave every road every year because it would be cost prohibitive. The association would not want to have to repave very often because it would be very expensive. And it was an unknown consequence if the burden is put onto them after the fact, because when they bought into it, they didn't buy into that situation. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for the city planner. So I guess to the question that they mentioned about the building permit process, so if someone goes to take out a building permit on one of these lots, they would be the person that would have to bring the road to city standards?
It gets triggered at that point
Okay.
because anybody can go and make divisions at the registry if you just divide up your land, but it's not until you come to the city to ask for a permit that we would then see that you're looking at adding a new unit to the road. So it's the addition of a unit to the road that triggers the upgrade.
Okay. And so basically the private road standard that we've established is to bring it to paving. So we still allowed private roads and private subdivisions that people maintain. It's just a matter of it being paved.
Correct.
Now, I don't know if you or Eric can answer this question. What's like the typical paving schedule? Like, would it be like 10 or 20 years that you would have to pave a road like that? Or longer?
I would think it would, I mean, you're talking about a low-frequency
Yeah.
road, so I don't see that necessarily coming into I mean, how often do we pave our own roads that have significant?
I heard someone from the audience say not often enough. That's correct. But you should, no, like, so a wearing surface on a roadway, typically say lasts about 15 years, at least 15 years. That's the goal. On a low volume roadway, that could easily be, 20, 25 years prior to needing to put a new surface coat on top of it.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Councilor Chow?
Yes, thank you. Through the city planner, Jenny, where are we talking about private ways and the amendments? Are we amending private ways tonight?
No, but the private ways have already been approved of by the city council.
Okay. All right. So all right. So we're not talking about the private ways. We're not changing at all. Are we changing subdivision? Are we changing the laws that the state of Maine law says you can subdivide your land every 5 years? We're not changing that
We're
tonight,
not,
right?
no.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay. So I understand your concerns, but we're not reviewing private ways or subdivisions tonight.
May I go on this?
Yes, please.
That's what's on the agenda. Review private ways.
We're not working towards an ordinance or the amendment on the private ways.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just saying, in this, we understand that back last fall, it was adopted that all new, it was, when the email blast was put out, it was all new private ways would be maximum 800 feet long. There was other requirements as well, and they had to be paved. We had been grandfathered through the last 3 planners and many iterations of this, of private way ordinances in the past. Basically, what it comes down to is of the 6 that we showed you there, this Timberland Drive is the only private way affected in any substantial manner in the entire city. And once it is built out, the grandfathering is not necessary at all. I don't know if we've made that point clear. This is a one-issue situation. If grandfathering takes place, it remains gravel, maximum 2 lots are sold. Anything new from here on forward is up to all the brand-new standards. So, no, we're not trying to change any, or bring in a new amendment to subdivision or change a state law.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, if you could come back up to the mic. So you had mentioned about having 2 proposed lots. Where your house is located, how much land do you have with your house?
With our house, we're not broken out because we're not, like I said,
The reason I'm asking is, I know you have 2 proposed lots that you want to do.
correct.
I'm just wondering, could you do further developing? If you have a lot of land with your house, could you do another lot?
No. The two proposed that's it. That's it. That's why we're asking for
That's the
grandfathering, saying,
max.
this has worked for 15 years.
Okay.
1 or 2 lots is gonna make no difference on the surface. And the city engineer even mentioned that it's a minimum impact road because of the small amount of residents that use it. We're just saying, 1 road in the city affected by this, 2 more lots maximum, maybe not even that. And then it's done. We have no immediate plans for it, no, but we're doing this at a slow pace because we're trying to be responsible and give people privacy. All the lots are built out to 60,000 plus square feet. As I mentioned, 1 got free land with it to make it a little bit larger. We have enough to do our lot plus 2 others at this point.
Okay. Where's the closest fire hydrant? Do you know?
It's right on Methodist Road.
Right on Methodist,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right there. It's actually, it's actually within 9 feet of the Timberland Drive right of way, so it's that close to this property. Yeah.
And when you first purchased the land and you went to the city, I'm assuming you had some sort of a conversation with them about what your future plans were for this property?
Well, well, that would be
Okay.
more of an intent and a memorialization, like the planner
Okay.
referred to early on. This wasn't allowed in 1998.
Okay.
In fact, when we purchased it, the realtor didn't want to tell us that it was a large parcel of land because she didn't think anybody be of interest to anybody, but it was to us. But
And this is just developed over time that you want to sell off lots?
exactly.
Okay. Okay.
And it goes through the regular process. The surveyor comes out, they're legally divided. All inspections are done by the city, and any state regulations are adhered by.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Jenny, just a quick question. The same question I asked them about the land where their house is. So they can only do 2 more lots on this private drive. If we allowed this exemption, could they just do 2 lots and that's it? They're maxed out?
Based upon the private way ordinance where we only allow for an 800-foot extension of the road, you can't have another dead end off of a dead end.
Okay.
So at this point, what they have for frontage along that private way is all that they can utilize. Based upon the provisions that we have afforded in the private way ordinance, they are allowed to utilize frontage along the road that they've already created.
Okay. And this is stemming because of, is this stemming because of the change in the road frontage change that we did on the council committee last week or not?
This is a separate
This is-
matter
this is
as it
totally
relates.
separate.
It relates to the road standards.
Okay.
So the question at hand that is being asked is to have a waiver of the provisions to allow it to, or however many building permits on this road above what they currently have, which would add more units, and what our provision typically has allowed for is that you need to upgrade the road. So you would be having to change the ordinance to put in a waiver provision so that that provision would not be adhered to.
Okay. And the change that we referred to the council the other night with the road frontage, how does that affect this? Does that affect this at all?
That would be something we would discuss later.
Actually, could I speak?
So that will affect this if that passes at
Oh,
council?
these are 2 separate issues, as far as one is road standards and then
Okay.
frontage is another.
Okay. All right. Yeah, if you have another comment, sure.
Yeah, I do, thanks. I'll be quick. Yeah, the road frontage is a whole other issue. If that does go forward, then, I don't know, it's just sort of looking like we're approaching a regulatory taking, so that concerns us too.
Okay. Okay. Any other further comments from the council? Any comments from the public? Further comments? Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment about what someone could develop. A developer could develop a condo association on that private road with that exemption.
So if they wanted to sell 1 lot, 2 lots,
Now, if the road association says they can't do that, then they couldn't do that. But under our ordinances, people have in the past, and I don't see why they couldn't in the future.
and like how large of a development condo thing are you
Well, it
talking
depends.
about?
I don't know. It would be whatever the allowable density would be for the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were not aware of that, just FYI.
Okay.
That's not
Okay.
That's not on our radar.
across
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Any further comments? Is there a motion from the committee? No motions made? So that means that the issue,
There's no action taken then.
no action taken? Okay. No action is taken. Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair?
Is there a second? We are adjourned. There we go.
All right. Good evening. I call to order the special city council meeting for this Monday, February 25th. Madam Clerk?
Yes, I'd like to note for the record that a special city council meeting was called for tonight, Monday, February 25th. This was called by Mayor Mike Sanfie on Friday, the 22nd. Notice was sent to councilors and published online.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilor Adams.
Here.
Councilor Chow.
Here.
Councilor Peoples is not present tonight. Councilor Foley.
Here.
Councilor Reardon is not present tonight. Councilor Riley is not present tonight. Vice President Turcott.
Here. All right, we'll salute the flag. Before we approve the minutes, I want to apologize to the city and to the council for sitting. It's not any disrespect, but a physical condition, so I apologize for not standing. Approval of minutes. We have minutes for January 30th, City Council and School Committee joint workshop. February 4th, 2019, Public Safety Committee meeting, regular City Council meeting and a Finance Committee meeting, and February 21st, Committee of the Whole. Do we have any comments or objections? No. None? Right,
Oh, wait, yes, I did have one, I noticed.
oh, of course you do.
This applies to you. On all the minutes, the indication of Vice President Turcott and President Reardon had the wards wrong.
Thank you.
It was the opposite on all of them, on all those sets of minutes, so.
Thank you. We'll correct
Thank you.
that.
I am not moving anytime soon. All right, thank you very much. Jerry will keep me honest in how I'm running this meeting. This is my first one, and as you could see, a lot of people are missing, probably because it is my first one, but we have a lot of people in the audience, so I appreciate you being here. Next is Mayor's message.
Thank you, Vice President Turcott. A couple of things. One is this coming Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, I have the monthly Mayor's Coffee at City Hall. Everybody's welcome to attend, speak with the mayor. Secondly, I want to mention that a short while ago, there's an armed robbery at the Highland Lake Variety Store on Bridgeton Road. A man walked into the store, demanded money, said he was armed. No weapon was produced, but he took off with some money, stole the car when he fled. Within a couple of hours, the Westbrook Police Department, in cooperation with the Wyndham Police Department, had a 30-year-old man in custody. They recovered a stolen car he had taken when he fled the scene, and also a second car that he stole from Portland. I want to say a great job the police department done, Westbrook and Wyndham both, so thank you for a job well done. The next thing up is we have the City of Westbrook Employee of the Quarter. It's fourth quarter of 2018, which is from October 2018 to December 2018. And it's my pleasure to announce that firefighter Zachary Staples is the recipient. So Chief Turcott, would you like to read that and present it?
Indy Turcott, the fire chief. It's always an honor when we get to recognize one of our own. Thank you all for coming this evening as well to recognize Zach. Employee of the Quarter is a city award that is presented to an employee who consistently demonstrates exceptional job knowledge, customer service, positive attitude, and who is given more to the community than is expected in their day-to-day job. Employees are nominated by their peers, supervisors, and selected by the Employee of the Quarter Committee. It is with great pleasure that we announce the recipient of the Employee of the Quarter for the City of Westbrook for October 2018 through December 2018, firefighter Zach Staples. Zach grew up in Portland and started out at the age of 15 as an explorer with the City of Westbrook Fire Rescue Department. After graduating high school and at the tender age of 18, he officially joined the Call Company Division. He became a per diem employee in 2007, and after 12 years of dedicated service, he was hired as a full-time firefighter paramedic. Zach demonstrates compassion and care that extends beyond the day-to-day calls, whether it is offering to help a resident to carry groceries out to their car, pushing a disabled vehicle out of the roadway, or shoveling off a patient's snowy deck, which a lot of our members do. He always does so selflessly with a smile on his face. Zach not only demonstrates compassion in the community, but he also does within the department. He is always willing to help out a coworker. He has often covered last-minute shifts for others, worked holidays on numerous occasions so that a coworker could be home with their family. And he always arrives early to work to ensure that a coworker is not held over on a late call. In the many years that Zach has served the community of Westbrook, he has gained knowledge and skills on both the fire and EMS side, and without hesitation has passed that knowledge down onto new hires, whether they are full-time, part-time, or a call company member. Zach has served as a preceptor, teaching new paramedic students the skills, as well as providing a positive learning experience to empower them to be successful in their career. During the fourth quarter of 2018, Rescue 2 and Engine 4 were dispatched to a call for a female in active labor. Zach was the first arriving paramedic. He provided exceptional care to the mother and determined that birth was imminent. Zach coached the mother through a difficult delivery and found the baby was ineffectively breathing. Zach's immediate recognition of the baby's condition and his quick action helped provide for a positive outcome for both the mother and the child. Zachary, we appreciate your dedication to the city, its citizens, and to all the employees. It is an honor to be nominated by your peers and to be recognized for the great work that you do day in and day out. Congratulations, Mayor Mike Sanfie, the great city of Westbrook. Thank you, Zach.
Secondly, we have another award, fourth quarter award for the Westbrook Police Department. So I'm going to ask Chief Roberts to make the presentation.
Good evening. This particular award, again, is for the police departments, our police and dispatch employee of the quarter. Unfortunately, our recipient is not able to be here this evening. Actually, he was also going to be doing the presentation on the department's specialties positions, but I'm going to sub for him. The recipient for the Westbrook Police Department's employee of the quarter for October through December 2018 is Detective Sergeant Tim Gardner. And I'll read the award right up for him. He's been selected for this honor by a committee of his peers, and the narrative is during the past quarter, he volunteered to temporarily fill the evening shift supervisory vacancy. He did so despite it being an inconvenience to you personally and professionally. Evening shift is the busiest shift in the department and one that has several young officers, making the supervisory role a crucial position. You volunteered to fill the position to provide consistent and steady leadership to the team. You succeeded in both these goals. You led the shift through several critical calls, handled interpersonal conflicts, and worked to mentor younger officers on their command presence at scenes and their report writing. During this temporary assignment, you also continued to lead the Criminal Investigations Division. You assigned and approved all the reports, continued to monitor detectives, and provide advice and guidance on cases. This workload of supervising both evening shift and CID was tremendous, yet you did not shirk from your duties and provided excellent leadership. An example of your high quality of work occurred when you responded to a domestic violence aggravated assault case with strangulation. Your report and photographs in this case were superb and were used as a training example for the rest of the department. During this quarter, you also responded to assist another officer who was being violently assaulted. You were able to immediately respond to assist the officer, use the appropriate amount of force to gain control of the suspect, and you wrote an excellent report detailing the use of force. More importantly, you took control of the scene and ensured that it was handled correctly and that the officer was taken care of. You volunteered for the Give a Cop the Bird fundraiser this past quarter. You also held training for the leadership team of a local business centered around workplace safety in response to an active shooter. For all of this and more, we are proud of you, Tim. We thank you for your inspiration you have given us, and we present you with this plaque as a memento of your appreciation, dated February 25th, 2019. So, in absentia, thank you, Tim.
Chief, did you want to give that presentation on the specialty unit?
I will, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Things set up, and if our on-duty staff want to go back on the streets and
Only if you want to.
They heard that.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Congratulations, Zach. I was planning on using it up there to see.
Oh, to see? Okay, let's see if she.
Would it be better if presented from here?
Thank you.
Give it a shot. The Jenny of all trades. So good evening. This particular overview is really around our specialty positions, which consist of two school resource officers, 2 K-9 officers, drug detective investigators, there's 2 of those, as well as a white collar crime investigator. And being the human that I am and how fallible as I can be, as I was sitting up there about 10 minutes ago, I realized that out of all the positions that my staff and I have been educating you about what we do, I've left out our evidence technician. He should be as part of this list of specialties. So although I don't have slides in relation to this, it also reminds me that the hard copies are over there with my notebook. Chief, can you grab the notebook underneath that, and on the left inside packet, the jacket, there's the handouts for the counselors.
We have it electronically as well.
You do?
Yeah, the clerk sent it to us.
So as a course of this presentation, I'm also going to try to give you some general information around our evidence technician as well, because that is a key role with property and evidence for the department in the city. So starting off with the school resource officers, just a quick rundown of what the typical daily duties are. They're not, as you would think of as a patrol officer, they're really doing a lot of administrative work, meeting quite often with the school leadership of the principal, the vice principals, the staff, the counselors, even the nurses, teachers, and trying to help provide the best service for the students, especially those that might be at high risk or struggling within the school environment, as well as at home and in the community. They do a lot of monitoring of the parking lot and the school buses, really interacting and mentoring the kids. Sometimes they'll be in teaching different classes when they're asked to. And they certainly collaborate quite a bit with other service providers, Department of Health and Human Services, juvenile corrections officers, to communities center and the different resources that might be there, Opportunity Alliance, any of the community-based programs that are not necessarily government operated as well. And certainly they're completing reports, they're certainly collaborating with the parents as well. There is a lot of interaction. It's frequent to see in the office's monthly reports where they have given a child a ride home. They have connected in, participated in a family team meeting to help with surrounding supports around the family so that the parents are successful in maintaining custody of their children. Sometimes it's that serious, and other times it's just more helping around the kids and how to best work with the school environment for the kids to be successful. And we certainly have additional dynamics around student behaviors that don't rise to the level of being a crime, but it is something that on a daily basis they are interacting with. And given last year's school year and how challenging it was with some losses of some tragic losses of some of our students, that it really added to a higher level of emotional need, not only for the students but for the staff as well. And as a result of that collaboration, not just with the SROs, but Superintendent Lancier and me, to make sure that every day that school is open, that we have an officer assigned to the school, even if it's not the dedicated officers of Officer Mailman and Officer Fahrenkopf. And luckily, I have 2 other officers, Officers Lowe and St. John, who have an affinity to youth as well, and regularly raise their hand and say, we're here to help when the other 2 officers are not able to work. Some of the other extracurricular things that our SROs do, we have the Youth Police Academy that's held in the summertime that Officer Fahrenkopf runs. It's a 7-week program for elementary age kids, and really he coordinates everything around police, fire, and 911 to educate them as to what we do, as well as how they can contact us when they need us. A boot camp for middle-aged school youth, that's something Officer Mailman has been put together for the last couple of years. It's another weekly program for, I think, 7 or 8 weeks. And it really helps build the youth's self-esteem and ability, physically as well as they work on different projects and another layer of mentoring. And a lot of the other community events that we do, like the National Night Out, the Kids Safety Day, and all those types of things that they're actively involved in. I did take some calls for service for just the high school officer position, and the fact that there is crime occurring that's happening in our schools, and there is a need for officers to be there for the day-to-day operations, as well as for those critical incidents that we hope never happen. But should they, then we have an officer that's immediately on scene. So as you can see, just in the second half of the last year's school months, January to June, there are a total of 13 criminal cases that I highlighted. There are others, but these are the ones that jumped out at me around drug offenses and assaults, and even sexual assaults and the threatening that has occurred in our school system. And again, these are strictly related to what Officer Fankoff was doing within the schools. It's not connected, or it's not driven by calls for service out in the community. So jumping right into our drug investigators, I mentioned we have two. One is assigned to the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency. It works in the region across Cumberland County. The state of Maine pays for that officer's salary and overtime, as well as vehicle, and everything that the officer needs to do that particular job is funded by the state. And as a result of that, that particular officer is working cases that are not necessarily directly related to the city of Westbrook. And maybe traveling even outside of Cumberland County, but for the most part, they are in Cumberland County. And they're big cases. They're typically where they're working on the heroin and the cocaine, fentanyl, and all the really dangerous and deadly drugs out there, and that we're seeing not just here in the city of Westbrook, but across our state and across the country. Right now, the quick picture that investigator Austin Clark gave me is he has 14 active cases, trying to juggle all the different components of drug cases. And drug cases can be one of the most challenging and most time-consuming, in the sense that the way the system is set up, it takes a lot of evidence in order to have a successful prosecution for somebody that is selling drugs. So there's a lot of work, and I've got a quick case study here as I get into the next couple slides. Before I do that, though, I'll pull myself back and say that our resident, so we have what we call a resident drug investigator. That currently is Officer Phil Robinson, and he's assigned to just Westbrook cases. So he's stationed right out of the Westbrook Police Department. Sorry, still have those aging days. And he works really jointly with the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency, and their agents use a lot of resources, especially the technology and advancements around recordings and surveillance that we as a city do not have the funds to invest in. So we leverage those state and federal partners to avail ourselves to that equipment. And he's currently got 11 active cases going. So this is a quick kind of rundown of what happens in an investigation. Lots of time, the way that we're finding out about drug activity, and especially drug sales, is from a tip. It's somebody that is seeing repetitive short visits to the neighbor, or lots of cars pulling up at all hours of the day or night, or people that don't look so friendly or savory in the neighborhood, and somebody will call with a concern. And one of the first things we have to do is surveil the area. We need to sit there and watch. What do we see? Lots of times we will see what the citizen has described, and officers, whether it's uniform or one of our drug detectives, will monitor and will stop a vehicle, have a reason, not using your blinker, having a taillight out, rolling through a stop sign, whatever the case may be, to make that traffic stop and to get the interaction with the people involved. As to asking questions and asking if they're willing to allow the officer to search the car by asking for permission. And I say my biggest philosophy in life is you can't say yes if I don't ask. And having officers do this proactively on the street, it's incredible how many times people will have illegal contraband, whether it's drugs or something else, on their person, in their car, and they will give permission for the officer to search. And as long as that permission stays and they don't rescind it, we can search and ultimately find drugs and evidence that we criminally charge the individuals with. It doesn't always happen that way. Some of our offenders are repeat offenders. They've been through the system, they've been arrested, and charged and convicted and come out and fall right back into that same old lifestyle. So a lot of times they are savvy in the sense that they will not give permission. And we really end up working around those types of cases a lot of times with a confidential informant, which tends to be somebody that is in that lifestyle, trying to keep themselves out of trouble. Maybe they've got criminal charges and that they might be able to get a break on what their conviction might be if they're able to bring additional information or other criminals to the drug investigators' attention and take them through the court process. So using the confidential informants, they do a buy-bust operation, which is really setting up a full operation, surveillance, recording, and everything, where the informant will go in and buy drugs from the particular dealer that is being targeted. And all of this information is pulled together using a lot of that information into search warrants so that we have ability to search a person's residence, a car. Sometimes it's storage. We've got one of the cases that we just recognized at our department's awards ceremony a couple weeks ago was a safe that was tossed in the woods after the storage location that the man was renting he knew was going to get hit, and it had over 20,000 pills and several $1,000s in cash. Through the investigation of Officer Robinson was able to track down where that safe was, wrote the search warrant, and that's what they discovered in the safe at the time. So I know in the previous, some of the previous presentations, we've had specific staffing hours and time consuming, and I didn't get a chance to connect with one of my drug detectives to get those details, but I can tell you, it's not like the TVs and the movies, people. It's not, you get the 5 minutes and the 10 minutes of excitement and action. You miss the 17 hours of writing reports and detailing and reviewing and meeting with the district attorney's office or the attorney general's office and everything that goes into these cases. A lot of times they're getting, the suspects, offenders are getting maybe less than a year in jail or on probation. So, and it's really a cycle that is negatively impacting not only the city of Westbrook, but everywhere. I guess I did put a little bit more in here. In-depth writing we already talked about. Oops. And jumping on to our canine handlers, our two officers that have our Canine Brooke and Canine Cal. They work a day shift and a midnight shift, and they train 1 day a week. Mondays is their day of training, and pretty much they have to, if it's 52 weeks in the year, they have to be in attendance for over 40 of them in order to maintain their certification. So it's a significant investment for the city of Westbrook for our canine officers and their partners. At the same time, the reward, the benefits that we get from the city and even regionally in the greater Westbrook area in relation to the calls for mutual aid that our handlers respond to. Currently, we have Canine Brooke is certified in both patrol work, which is searching for people, doing tracks, article searches, and then the narcotics detection, which is for any of the illegal drugs, not counting marijuana at this stage. Actually, in our law enforcement profession today, if a dog is trained to detect marijuana, they cannot be used as a drug detection canine for purposes of criminal cases because it's legal to have marijuana now. And the dog can't tell you that, oh, I don't smell marijuana, or I smell heroin. They detect a drug and you got to go find out what it is. So, and our last Officer Robinson, before he became the drug detective, was a canine handler with Canine Roxy, who we couldn't use for that purpose because she was an older dog that was trained with that back before the laws have changed. So we have, Brooke is trained in both narcotics and patrol work, and Cal is just recently received his certification in patrol work this past December, which he started training with Officer Smith in April of 2018, so in the course of 9 months, 7, 8, my math is not right there, 7 or 8 months, this partnership really has produced some great training and certification. And we had a total of 127 calls for our K-9s in 2018. 60 of those in Westbrook for our own city, and another 67 of those for mutual aid around the region. And as you can see there, that's Jeremy on the left with Cal, and Brooke on the right with Ben. And Cal is the K-9 that Cal, and the reason why his name is Cal is Calpine Corporation donated to the city $10,000 for the purchase of Cal, and it continues to pay. The funds from that particular donation is still covering everything to do with Cal's veterinary visits and equipment and everything. And they've actually pledged to continue to support Cal as much as they can, including getting him, donating to another cause to get him a body armor vest. For the Westbrook calls, we had 15 that were related to drugs, 21 that were tracks of people. 7 of them were article searches. 1 was a search and a track. 11 were for unknown reasons. What happens is when they get logged into the database, depending on the information that the dispatcher puts in or the K-9 officer puts in, we don't have all the information. And then 5 were for demonstrations. And lots of time during their regular work shifts, when there's downtime, the officers will train with their partners. We'll have another officer go hide someplace and they'll work a track, or the other officer will conceal some drugs that they have for training purposes, and for the dog to search it. Our mutual aid calls, we had 13 for drugs, 25 for tracks, 1 for an article search, 1 for a search and a track, and 27 were for unknown reasons. Moving on to our white-collar crime investigator. He's attached to the FBI's task force. He started out working with the Joint Terrorism Task Force and has transitioned over to the white-collar crime. There's actually been, I know of 3 cases off the top of my head that have direct nexus to the city of Westbrook that he has investigated, 1 to successful prosecution. I think the other 2 are ongoing at this time. Another plus for this position to the city of Westbrook is access to the federal resources and investigations. The position does, the department pays for the officer's salary, the city, excuse me, pays for the officer's salary. Any overtime that he incurs is paid for by the federal government. And he definitely is working cases throughout Cumberland County with his ties to West. Anything that comes up that's Westbrook related, he's definitely involved in. And his name, Joel LaRanger, is the officer that's currently assigned there. Some of the examples of embezzlement, Ponzi scheme type crimes, benefit fraud, and suspicious international travel is another one that's still tied to the counterterrorism dynamics, but is something he's been involved in. I know that that's my last slide before my question slide. So quickly on the evidence technician position, it's focused around processing crime scenes, taking photographs, dusting for fingerprints. Actually, the case that the mayor highlighted at the beginning of tonight's meeting from the robbery at Duck Pond Variety, the suspect's footwear had left impressions in the snow. And evidence technician York was able to do a cast of that footwear impression in the snow. And we collected the man's footwear when we took him to the jail, and were able to match them up. All of our footwear they become like your fingerprints, because they become unique to how you walk and you wear. And if you stepped on, like I got an old pair of shoes that I used to sit at campfires, so they get a little burnt rubber spot because they got too hot. So there's those types of nuances in individual pieces that are key to identifying and saying specifically it was Janine Roberts' footwear. And we have photographs of those shoes on her feet and right after this crime happened. I didn't commit the crime, by the way. And so the evidence dynamic keeps E.T. York very busy. The other piece is, and it's a daily dynamic, is around property. It's property that is found that people turn in. It's property that's confiscated as a result of safekeeping. A lot of times when our officers are working with people that are struggling with mental illness or in crisis, and they are owners of firearms, we're working with them to get their cooperation to get those firearms into safekeeping. And if they resist that, then we'll work with the system to see if we can get a court order to take those sometimes. That's really rare cases there. The biggest piece of work is around our in-cruiser camera systems. What we call WatchGuard is the name of the product. But everything that the officer does, from a traffic stop to responding to any type of call, if we're not recording it visually, we're recording it audially. And the district attorney's office and the courts nowadays require everything, like if there's 4 of us on a call, but I'm the only one that really did anything, those other 3 officers have to write supplements and submit those recordings because it may contain evidence that's either for the prosecution or for the defense. And we gotta make sure that all that is included. And all of those copies have to go through E.T. York. He also works with returning people's property. And that happens probably on a daily basis with people reaching out to get something back that was taken either as I did in the different ways that I described briefly. And when I talk about the recordings, I'm talking thousands. I'm talking probably over 2,500 a year. So he's got another very busy position when he's out of the office, away on vacation or training. We have other patrol technicians that are trained, so they're patrol officers that are trained basically to take they're more knowledgeable about taking photographs than just taking a picture, knowing what they need to do for evidentiary purposes as well as the dusting for fingerprints and things like that. So that is my presentation. Thank you for your patience in getting through it. I meant to bring my phone up here and put it down to see how long it actually took me to say that, but hopefully I didn't go too long. Any questions at all?
Any questions? I have a quick question. I'm just kind of curious where you had said that we have one of our officers works for the Maine DEA as a special agent, and then another one is attached to the FBI task force. So that means that they're not, they don't put hours in at Westbrook on staff. They're working actually for those departments?
Yes, they're attached to their respective task force.
And
So
why is that? Do all departments do that?
They have. Many do. It really comes down to staffing ability. But yeah, I mean, they're regional task force. So for the Drug Enforcement Agency, which is a statewide, there's definitely at least 3 offices across the state. And one of them being the Cumberland County, even New York County, I think, is combined as well. And it's like Portland PD has a sergeant and 2 officers assigned. I think Wyndham PD has an officer assigned. South Portland has an officer assigned. So in the Lewiston, Auburn, Augusta area would have their local police departments represented. And there's state, like the director for Maine Drug Enforcement Agency, and then there's the commanders. So the current commander in the Cumberland County area is a retired Portland Lieutenant Scott Pelletier. So it's all really the local communities contributing to a regional approach. With the federal task force, it's the same thing. It's just the FBI is housing that particular task force. And there's officers, I know from the state police, Westbrook, Lewiston, Augusta. Portland has, not necessarily in the white-collar crimes, but they do the safe streets. So there's a couple of other different federally funded and run task force that we aren't actively involved with.
And the advantage of them pulling people from other departments as opposed to just having hiring their own staff?
The advantages, a couple that come quickly off the top of my head, is multiplying your force, certainly, and then the knowledge, the contacts, and the experience that those officers are getting in these regional task force. They're bringing that back to our agency. They're still working with coworkers. Eventually, Joel Ranger is going to come back. Austin Clark is, I think, the 3rd officer that's been assigned to MDEA just in my short 4.5 years. So they're getting the additional training and experience and knowledge around different, even internet-based programs for investigative tools, for identifying and tracking people. A lot of his leadership components as well. And they come back and they're sharing that information with their peers up the chain of command. And so those are the 2 biggest benefits that I see.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Very, very informative, great presentation, and I'm all set. Here's message.
So next we have student representative update.
I'll be brief. The theater department is getting ready for their one-act regional festival that's coming up next week. Again, the play is a 35-minute play, as is the rules that go along with the competition. It is a comedy by Ed Monk titled A Company of Players. It's a very new play. And there will be 2 evening shows for the public. One is Wednesday, March 6th at 7 p.m. And the other is Thursday, March 7th at 7 p.m. Tickets are $5 for students and $10 for everyone else. This money helps go into the theater department fund and is what allows the theater department to put on plays, because we have to buy the rights to every play we put on. So make sure to mark your calendars and please attend. As for sports, congrats to the girls and boys indoor track team for their state championship. Hope Higgins finished 6th place in shot put. Dante Lingley finished 5th place in the 55-meter dash. Cameron Holloway is the state champion in the 55 hurdles. Muhammad Sharif is the state champion in the 800, and he set a new state record, which is really awesome. And then Niagwa Bayak is again the state champion in the high jump and triple jump, and she set a new state record with a 6-foot jump. She has been working towards this height since freshman year, and the school and everyone is really proud of her. It's so amazing. And Dante, Cameron, Muhammad, and Niagwa will compete in the New England Championship on March 2nd, so look forward to that, and I'm sure they're all going to continue to do really well, and hopefully, continue to set new records. Other school activities, there is a staff versus seniors basketball game on February 28th. This helps support Project Graduation, which is for the seniors. It's there's a night where after graduation we all go somewhere. It's usually a surprise for the class, and it's a bunch of activities and just sort of class bonding for the end of the year. So look forward to that. I'm not sure what ticket prices are, but I'm sure we'll be getting more information. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're coming to the first public comment of the evening. Are there anyone in the public who'd like to speak?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to acknowledge the police awards ceremony that a few of the councilors and the mayor and Mr. Bryant attended a couple Saturdays ago at the American Legion up on Route 25, and just say how it was really informative, and just like you saw tonight with Chief Roberts, everything he talked about with special positions, it also acknowledged citizens and businesses who are doing good work in our community, and very eye-opening what they deal with on a daily basis. And I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to Chief Roberts and anybody that helped put that on. And I look forward to attending the one next year. So thank you. And thank you for everything that you guys do.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Just to echo the comments that Councilor Adams made. Also, I had no idea, learning at that event, that the spree of robberies that we had last year was solved almost, or helped to be solved by a citizen out jogging. So that was amazing to see that citizen get recognized for that effort to help solve those spree of robberies that impacted the region for quite a while. And also, I was able to attend this past week the community conversation on opiate abuse held at St. Anthony's Church. And that was a great presentation to learn about the impacts of overdoses in our community and the area, and what we can do to help the community and work together to try to save lives, essentially, was the message from that evening. So they provided Narcan to folks who wanted to take that to try to help people who may overdose, and it was a very informative event, and I thank the police department, and it was mostly organized by the community liaison, the neighborhood,
The community policing coordinator?
yeah, community policing coordinator, and the
recovery liaison.
and the recovery liaison was organized that event, and they did a tremendous job. I was able to explained some of the 911 protocols as well, helping out Captain Goldberg with some of that. So it was a great event. So I thank you for putting on that event. And thank you for that work in that area. Thank you, Madam Vice President.
Thank you. Any other comments? Public comment. Go ahead. Please state your name.
Abigail Chaffee, Director of Discover Downtown Westbrook. I realized I had a comment as I was sitting there. Coming up on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 27th, from 5:30 to 7:30, we'll be doing an arts and culture planning process lunch meeting. So that is, we received the Maine Arts Commission's Creative Communities Equals Economic Development grant last year, and have been kind of doing some planning on it so far, but this is the launch meeting, so definitely invite all of you here in the room, and then anyone listening. Basically come in, give your feedback on sort of arts and culture initiatives that are coming in the next 5 to 10 years or more. And once we complete this cultural planning process, that allows us to apply for a $75,000 implementation grant. So it's a pretty exciting project that we're just getting started on. If you can't make it Wednesday, we also have a couple more happening in a couple weeks. So check out our Facebook and social media and all that. So that's it. Thanks.
Where is it being held?
Oh, hey. It is at Yes Brewing, so right behind Mr. Bagel. That's where the first one is. And again,
And
yes,
you say
Victor.
check it out on Facebook. Where do they check it out on Facebook?
On our page, Discover Downtown Westbrook. It's one of our events on there, and details. I think that's the best place to find details right now for that event. So yeah, or email me. You could go to our website, downtownwestbrook.com as well. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? We have no unfinished business, so orders of the day. Madam Clerk?
The first item is Order 2019-26, authorizing expenditure for lettering and numbering at Westbrook schools.
What are the wishes of the council, Mr. Foley?
Thank you. I'll move for approval of the following orders. Order number 2019-26, authorizing expenditure for lettering and numbering at Westbrook schools. Order number 2019-27, authorizing expenditure for school safety and emergency preparedness consulting services. Order number 2019-29, authorizing purchase of replacement pool filters. Order number 2019-30, authorizing purchase of safety hoods. And order number 2019-31, authorizing lease purchase, financing agreement for remounted ambulance.
Second, Councilor Chow. So the orders 2019-26 through 31 were moved by Councilor Foley, seconded by Councilor Chow.
Except 28.
I apologize.
That's okay. I left that one out.
Any other ones you would like to remove? Nope. Okay. Any discussion?
Do you need a roll call?
Huh?
Need a roll call.
Oh, right. We do on this one. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Chow?
Yes.
Counselor Foley?
Yes.
Counselors Peoples, Reardon, Riley are absent. Counselor Turcott?
Yes. We have 4 in favor, unanimous. Order number 2019-28, authorizing purchase of email archive solution. What are the wishes of the council? Ms. Adams?
I move for second and final reading of 2019-28, authorizing purchase of email archive solution.
And we have seconded, Councilor Foley? Yep.
I think the administration has.
We're asking this item to be postponed. Basically, at the last city council meeting, a question was raised about whether or not we had explored Google options that are available, and we've looked into it initially. It appears initially to be very attractive. We don't want to withdraw this item because we've not fully decided if we're going to pursue the Google option. And we've asked that it be postponed until April 4th to allow Greg Hamilton to more fully explore the Google options and perhaps bring something, an alternative, back to the city council for consideration.
All right,
So
we
just
take-
a motion to postpone. Yep.
April 1st.
April 1st. You're right.
All right, so do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right, so we are postponing 2019-28. Do we vote on this? All right.
Show of hands.
Okay, let's vote on this. All right, 4 in favor to postpone this item. right, we have a new business, business licenses, liquor license application for Starlight Catering. What are the wishes of the council? Mr. Chow?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following two licenses in the usual fashion. Liquor license application renewal for Starlight Catering located at 1275A Bridgeton Road, and liquor license application renewal for Quill Books and Beverage LLC located at 1 Westbrook Commons, number 5.
Do we have a second? Ms. Adams? How do we vote on the licensing?
Show of hands. Just show
Show of
hands.
hands, all
Yep.
right, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Resolves first and final reading. Madam Clerk?
For first and final reading, we have resolved 2019-4, accepting the Planning Board Chairman's 2018 annual report.
What are the wishes of the council? Councilor Foley?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I move for approval of Resolve 2019-4, that accepting the Planning Board Chairman's 2018 annual report, that the Westbrook City Council hereby accepts the attached 2018 annual report from the Planning Board Chairman.
We have a second? Mr. Chow? Do you have any questions, discussion items on this? Yes.
I would be remiss if I did not speak to Planning Board Chairman Reeman's birthday today. Today is his 80th birthday. Councilor Foley and I actually attended his recognition yesterday afternoon, and just Ed has served the city of Westbrook for countless years on the planning board, most of them as the chair, and it was a very nice event yesterday recognizing his 80th birthday.
Happy birthday. All right, so do we have any, no comments, no public comments? No, resolve number 2019-4, all those in favor? It is unanimous, 4 in favor.
The next item are orders for first and final reading. The first is Order 2019-32, accepting the Police Department's Forfeiture Fund quarterly report.
What are the wishes of the council? Ms. Adams?
I move for first and final reading of order number 2019-32. And of course, I don't have the order in front of me, so give me 2 seconds. So I can read it out loud. Here we go. Okay. Accepting the Police Department's Forfeiture Fund quarterly report, that the Westbrook City Council hereby accepts the Police Department's Forfeiture Fund report for October, November, and December 2018, approving the acceptance of $6,412.92 and the expenditure of $1,774.97 in the budget lines stated.
All right, we have a second, Councilor Chow. Any comments or discussions? Any public comment? All right, so all those in favor of 2019-32?
It's a roll call.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Chow?
Yes.
Counselor Foley?
Yes.
Counselors Peoples, Riley, Reardon are absent. Vice President Turcott?
Yes.
4 in favor. That item being passed, the next item is Order 2019-33, amending master fee schedule regarding towing fees.
Ms. Adams?
I move for first and final reading on order number 2019-33, amending the master fee schedule regarding towing fees. That the Westbrook City Council hereby approves an amendment to the City of Westbrook Code of Ordinances, Appendix B, Master Fee Schedule Licenses and Permits as follows. Subsection 20-148 towing fees per non-accident tow, an increase from $85 to $100. Per accident tow, an increase from $95 to $125. And vehicle storage per 24-hour period or fraction after the first 24 hours from $30 to $40.
Do we have a second? Councilor Foley? Madam Clerk?
Comments?
Comments? No comments from the council? No public comment? All right.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Chow?
Yes.
Counselor Foley?
Yes.
Counselors Reardon, Riley, Peoples are absent. Vice President Turcott?
Yes.
Four in favor, none opposed. Next item is Order 2019-34, authorizing acceptance of donation for Westbrook Recovery Liaison Program.
What are the wishes of the council? Councilor Adams?
I move for first and final reading of order number 2019-34, authorizing acceptance of donation for Westbrook Recovery Liaison Program. That the Westbrook City Council hereby approves the acceptance of a donation in the amount of $3,000 from the First Baptist Church in Westbrook for the Westbrook Recovery Liaison Program, and amount to be deposited into the budget line stated.
Any second, Councilor Foley, any comments or discussion items? Ms. Adams?
Well, I, of course, would like to thank them for helping to fund a very important program in our city. So I just wanted to say thank you to the First Baptist Church.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? No? Madam Clerk?
Councilor Adams?
Yes.
Councilor Chow?
Yes.
Councilor Foley?
Yes.
Councilors Reardon, Riley, Peoples are absent. Vice President Turcotte?
Yes.
Four in favor, none opposed. Moving on to orders requiring two readings, the first of which is Order 2019-35, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 26, regarding sanitary facilities, sewers, and wastewater treatment.
Councilor Foley?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. If there's no objection from members of the council, I'm going to move for approval of order numbers 2019-35, 37 through 45, as they were items we just discussed recently at length at a committee meeting, and there will be public hearings for these items at a future meeting, so there'll be more, discussed more in depth. Move for approval of order number 2019-35, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 26, regarding sanitary facilities, sewers, and wastewater treatment. Order number 2019-37, authorizing amendment to the land use ordinance regarding business professional office district. Order number 2019-38, authorizing amendment to land use ordinance regarding the village review overlay zone. Order number 2019-39, authorizing amendment to the Code of Ordinances regarding the village review overlay zone committee. Order number 2019-40, authorizing amendment to the land use ordinance regarding artisan food and beverage. Order number 2019-41, authorizing amendment to land use ordinance regarding veterinary office and kennel. Order number 2019-42, authorizing amendment to the land use ordinance regarding Gateway Commercial District. Order number 2019-43, authorizing amendment to the land use ordinance regarding North Street no parking zone. Order number 2019-44, authorizing amendment to land use ordinance regarding signs. And order number 2019-45, authorizing several administrative changes to the land use ordinance.
All right, do I have a second?
Second, I'm sorry, I understand your
Councilor
question.
Chow. So this is a motion to move orders 2019-35 and 2019-37 through 45, excluding 2019-36. Do we have any comments or discussion from the council? From the public? None. So this is a show.
If I can just note for the record that, as Councilor Foley noted, that these items do require public hearings. The public hearings are scheduled to take place at the special city council meeting to be held on March 18th. Notice of the public hearings will be published in the American Journal on that should be February 28th, and on March 7th.
All right, so this is a show of hands. Do we have any comments? None? All right, so all those in favor? 4 in favor, none opposed. So next order is 2019-36.
This is Order 2019-36, authorizing award of bid for design of Westbrook Common Revitalization Project.
What are the wishes of the council? Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Vice President Turcotte. I move for first reading on order number 2019-36, authorizing award of bid for design of Westbrook Common Revitalization Project. That the Westbrook City Council hereby authorizes an award of bid to Malone and McBroom, Inc. of Portland, Maine in the amount of $95,510 for Westbrook Common Revitalization Project design and engineering services as described in the attached exhibit, with Westbrook Environmental Improvement Corporation funding authorized by Council Order 2019-22, authorizing Westbrook Environmental Improvement Corporation expenditure for redevelopment of Westbrook Commons adopted on February 4th, 2019.
We have a second? Mr. Foley? This is order number 2019-36. Any comments or discussion? Go ahead.
Hi, Abigail Chaffee again, Director of Discover Downtown Westbrook. Just wanted to say, that we're so grateful for the donation from WIC to do this project. Discover Downtown Westbrook and the city have been working very closely on this project, and from 11 applications narrowed it down to 5, did interviews with those 5, and it was a very quick process, and we ended up with, I think, a really terrific firm. I think you'll be really, really excited to meet them and get to know them over the next several months. We have a quick period happening right away. They'll make some concept designs for funding that we're coming up to, but there will be a public period happening over the summer and fall. So definitely encourage everyone to be a part of that process and come meet this really, really dynamic team. They're very, very impressive, and we're very excited to be able to work with them and get this project going, since we've been talking about it for a while now. So thanks so much, and definitely I encourage you to support this project.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? All right, so this is order number 2019-36. All those in favor? 4 in favor, none opposed. So now we are at the second public comment of the evening. Any comments? None. We have no referrals and no executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Vice President.
All right, all those in favor? 4 in favor. Thank you very much. I think I did pretty good for my first meeting.
Nicely done.
I think I'm
Nicely done.
it's natural. Thank you.
I'm going to text Gary and tell him he doesn't have to come home.
He can stay in Texas? No, we want him back. All right, thank you very much.
City Council Finance Committee. We have one item on this evening's agenda, and we're starting right at the estimated time the clerk predicted. One item is updating cemetery fees, and this will be presented by Artie Ledoux, our Public Services Operations Manager. Mr. Ledoux.
Good evening, Chairman Foley. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to present these proposed increases on behalf of the Public Services Department as well as the Board of Trustees. A couple of the trustees are here tonight. They have Trustee Bruce Allen and Trustee Bob Barton, and unfortunately, Trustee Byron Rogers is in Alabama enjoying the warm weather. So
That's not unfortunate.
So, in your packet, you have the proposed cemetery fee increases, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about the current fees that if you have that in your packet as well. What we did when we reviewed these last year at probably 2 or 3 meetings, we wanted to make some adjustments to the fees and also see if we can condense down some of the categories here. So one of the ones I'd like to call your attention to is if you look in interments, adult, child 5 and under, and infant 1 year and under. One of the trustees proposed that we change that to child 12 years old and under and capture all of those categories under just one heading, just to cut down. There's no other municipalities with this type of breakdown through my research in looking at these numbers. The disinterments, again, we made an adjustment for child under 12, and cremations. There's a couple of different types. We have a cremation with no service, Sometimes we have just an urn and perhaps no family members, so we have to take care of that on our own. Or sometimes it's just not going to be a service for a variety of reasons. It's pretty straightforward. I hope when I look at the cemetery proposed fees, we look down. I'm going to go column by column. The current fees are in the green, and then the percentages that we increase the fees by are the next column, and then the blue in the middle would be the new fees that we're looking to have adjusted. There's so much data out there with regarding residents and non-residents and children and cremations and Saturdays and weekends and weekdays after 2. There's so much data that what we decided to do was just take Portland and South Portland and average resident and non-resident pricing all the way down through. And then we also included St. Anthony's in the last column just for some comparison. So I guess at this point I'm ready for some questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Ledoux. Is there any questions or a motion from members of the committee? Councilor Adams?
I do have a question. So when you were talking about the fees for a child 12 and under, so you're saying before that wasn't broken out?
No, I'm saying before it was broken out. Okay, you had a child 5 years and under, then you had infant 1 year and under.
Oh, okay.
And, it's, there's a lot of trauma on a family when they come in with some of these situations, and, we have to look at this with them, and so we just felt it would be appropriate to just say child 12 and under, and also just condense it down so that we don't have so many fees that can.
And it's not as expensive. It's a little bit of a break, cost-wise.
It's a little bit of a break.
Okay. Okay.
Like the infant, for instance, would move up to what the child 5 years and under was, but then together they came down together too.
Does anybody else have any comments? Because I was going to make a motion.
You can make a motion and we can take more comments.
Okay. I make a motion to forward this to City Council for approval of updating the cemetery fees as presented.
Next, it's been moved by Councilor Adams, seconded by Councilor Chow to move the cemetery fees to the City Council for approval. Vice President Turcott, question.
Yeah, I agree with you that this breakdown seems somewhat insensitive to the family. Was there a reason why this was done? I mean, the price differences are so small. Why would we do that?
Well, the last time these were looked at were in 2007. And then prior to that, through my research, the best I could find was 1997. And that's always been the way this schedule was laid out. So to address that sensitivity, which I think we all shared, the trustees agreed that maybe we could just change the language. It's kind of tough, because when parents are looking at this stuff, it's not easy.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Turcott. I'm sorry, Vice President Turcott. And I think even to piggyback on that, it helps because, it adds in the 12, the age up to 12, so they're not considered an adult anymore. So it keeps that to be more affordable for someone that end up being 6 and they're charged as if it was an adult. So it is a challenging situation, and we appreciate your efforts, Artie, to help people through this challenging time. We hope that everyone prepares for these things in advance so they don't have to do it in a crisis, but sometimes that's not always the case. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mr.
Well,
Luke?
just a few statistics real quick, because there was a lot of work to put it together. So just to share with you, one of the trustees at one of our meetings said, well, how much does it cost you to do a funeral? And I was like, I don't know. So I did cost out a funeral, and using FEMA rates, which is all we have, because they're actually less than, like, if you hired a backhoe from, say, Grondon. We came up with $1,615.50 to do a funeral. Okay, that's with equipment, research, 2 folks on the job, and then going back in the spring, loaming and seeding and hydroseeding, okay? You might find a couple more things interesting, and then that's it. Last year in 2018, we had 67 burials, 28 full-size, and 39 were cremations, and which results to 58% of the burials we had last year were cremations. And as far as grave sales, we sold 28 lots last year. 5 of them were to non-residents, which comes to 18%. And we sold all the lots in Woodlawn except one was sold in Sacarapa Cemetery up Church Street there from Blaze Funeral Home. That's it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ledoux, for all the work that you've put into this, and to the
Yeah.
trustees as well for the work and time that you've thought this out. So we thank you for coming this evening, and thank you for your work. Do you have something? Yeah, Councilor Adams.
I'm just curious, how much more space do we have at our cemeteries?
So I would say there's approximately 30 spaces left in section 18, okay, which is all the way in the back on the left. There are onesies and twosies sporadic throughout the cemetery, like in some of the older sections. And then we have a section 12 all ready to come online. And then right behind that would be, I believe, section 18 is, not far behind. So when the time is right, I'll work with Eric and the trustees and we'll pull the trigger. We talked about laying them out with the GIS this summer so we can, divide them up and, be ready to go.
So how much land do we actually have there? I mean, what's your estimate? Are we gonna get to a point where we need to find another lot of land for cemetery, or?
We won't. Yeah.
Oh, you won't?
But I made.
We won't? Well, I plan on living forever, so.
Let's just say I made a reservation at the Super 8 for that time capsule. Okay, so I may see it, but.
Okay, so it's gonna be,
we
we won't have to
come
reveal
on,
it
and then
now.
we own probably enough for 2 tracks of cemeteries on the backside where we would bring in a logging operation. Up on the end, on the top right, is what we call the free section. And right behind that, there's an area that we're preparing for Doppler Doug's tree farm. Okay, we might grow some trees back there to transplant, like down on William Clark Drive and things like that.
Okay, that's great.
Until we need that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Bryan.
Just to familiarize you with another project that Artie and the trustees had looked at and we've not moved forward with. As indicated earlier, a significant number of our interments now are cremations. And we looked at the concept of Artie, tell me what the name of it is.
Columbarium?
A columbarium. Did all of you know what a columbarium is?
We talked about it here.
Yeah, I know you do, you're cheating.
I don't, please educate me.
Basically, it's where you would have a facility where you would place the cremated remains, so you're not using up the grave, the lot space. It's more space efficient.
It's a tomb.
Yeah.
It's essentially.
It's a condo for.
I already referred to them as.
Perfect.
Niche.
Niche.
They're niches.
Is it kind of like what they have in California, go out and it's a big
Yes.
wall and you
It's
go
like a
to the-
wall, it's a wall full of drawers,
Okay, okay,
literally.
Well,
yes.
doors.
Yeah.
Right.
If I may, if you go by Brooklawn and you see those large, are they granite already? I think they're granite structures that have been placed out front.
Okay.
Those are columbariums.
We looked at that option for a portion of the cemetery. We actually got as far as getting cost estimates on construction, which surprised us at the cost. We have not, or I don't believe we've given up the concept, but we're trying to look at a way to do it in obviously a quality, tasteful way, but the upfront expense was significant for the construction. But that's just one way to better manage the property going forward, so we'll be able to continue to provide the opportunity of places for particularly Westbrook families to have final resting places for the foreseeable future.
Great.
All set, Mr. Bryan? Council Joe?
Yes, thank you, through you. Where the columbarium, where we charge fees, can't we somehow figure out the fees so it pays for the columbarium?
Yes. The fees have got to be, well, number one, the fees have to correspond with what the marketplace will bear. And we've also got to be sensitive that we're not creating a cost factor that is beyond the reach of, one of the reasons that the city has a public cemetery is to provide affordable options for our residents. And so we want to make sure we're not pricing ourselves out of affordable facilities. And so that's how, we would always look to recover all of our costs. That was always the concept. And Artie has done a tremendous amount of research on all aspects of this. So probably in the next year or so, we will be back with a proposal. But that's something we were considering. We've postponed it simply because the costs were a little more than we were willing to take on.
Thank you, Councilor. Did you have another question?
Yeah, I
Vice
just
President Turcotte?
curious why the construction is expensive and how expensive.
Probably about 4 years ago, I think we undertook this, and we modeled it after the Maine Veterans Cemetery in Augusta and the process for how they put theirs together. And if I'm not mistaken, the lowest bidder we could get came in around $230,000 for ours. Now, when you talk about the ones at Brooklawn, we know cemetery guys kind of know each other. So I asked those guys out there, the Jensen boys, I said, well, what about those out there? They said, don't do these. Mistake. So I didn't research much into that. I couldn't. I can talk to them, but they said, and I think we're looking at about $180,000 on the front lawn, which the thing that we designed was really, really nice. I mean, I'll be glad to share with you anytime. And the cost, we thought, for a niche. So how we worked this out with the trustees was, if I remember right, maybe like $3,300, okay? And what does that get you for $3,300? It gets you a niche. It gets you, you can put 2 cremations in a niche, and it also included the opening and closing for those services. It included the engraving, the mounting of any plaques on there if there happens to be a veteran. And so it was sort of like the convenience of it was one-stop shopping versus if you buy a plot and then you have to get a vault and then the cost of the funeral, and then you decide you want to put a monument up and a gravestone. So it could be a lot of money, where if we figured with one price we could, if I remember right, Jerry, we were talking about we could almost cover half of phase 2 once it got rolling. And it was going to be up in the point across from Laughlin Drive in that cleared out area. And so, like Jerry said, we just kind of had to put it on ice, and it is. But, we could resurrect it if we had to.
The primary
No
reason I brought
no
it up is
pun
that it
intended.
relates to the life expectancy of the total facility, because that's a more efficient use of the land.
Okay. And the
You don't realize we do this every day.
You're just funny and you don't even know it.
You had some good puns and you didn't even
Yes.
know it.
sorry about that. So, now I forgot what I was going to
No,
tell
that's
you. Eh,
about the columbarium.
I don't know.
Resurrection.
It's fine. Go ahead.
See, any further questions from the committee on this item? It was been moved by Councilor Adams, seconded by Councilor Chow, to move the updated cemetery fees to the council for action. All those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. No further business before the committee this evening. A motion to adjourn would be in order. Moved by Councilor Adams, seconded by Vice President Turcotte. All those in favor? We are adjourned.